everyone, my name's Jake and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing my February wrap-up, so I'm going to talk about all the books I read in February for the BookTube games. I've already filmed this once and it was like 29 minutes, but I, for some reason, hate it. So I'm going to refilm it. Hopefully this is a little bit better. I'm going to try to keep it below like 22 minutes. We'll see. I'm going to go back to my old system in which I talk about the books I rated the lowest and then work my way up to my favorite book of the month. Let's just get into it. My least favorite book I read in February was actually for my book club that I talk about every month with my two friends that aren't part of the book community, and it was Noughts and Crosses by Mallory Blackman. But this follows a world in which there are noughts and crosses. Crosses are the dark-skinned people and they're the ruling class, high-class citizens, and then noughts are the light-skinned people who are the lower class. It's pretty much like alternate reality in which the roles are flipped, I guess? I don't know. I really didn't enjoy it. I thought that the writing was terrible for most of it. It was very juvenile, and they are kids for the first, like, 2/3 of it. But even then, I was like, this just is not good. But I was gonna give this 1 star. But then I read the last third of it, in which they're adults, and I enjoyed that hella more than I did the first 2/3 when they were kids. So I'm not sure if I'm gonna continue this series yet, because in the future ones they are adults, so I might enjoy them more, but I'm not sure yet. Overall, really didn't care for this. I'm going to give it a 2 out of 5 stars, but I'm not completely writing off the series yet. Next up is a book that I started in January for the biannual Bibliothon, and I took forever to read it because it was very slow and I didn't like it. That was The Empress of All Seasons by Miko Jean. This follows a world in which there is a palace and a king rules it, and the prince has to obviously marry a princess, get a wife. The way they figure out who that wife is going to be is they bring a bunch of women that sign themselves up for this challenge to the palace in which they have to conquer 4 rooms, each one based on a different season. This follows our main character, Marie, and she wants to conquer all 4 rooms. But the problem is she is not a human, she is part monster. And in this world, monsters are looked down upon and they are not allowed to compete in this tournament-style game. That was a terrible description, but whatever, that's what it's about. My main issue with this was it was slow as hell. Like, I really, it's the same exact thing with Noughts and Crosses. I really did not like the first 2/3 of it. I thought that it was boring, slow. I really didn't like any of the male characters, but I liked most of the female characters. And I just didn't care for it too much. But the last, like, 100 pages were actually really good. And if that was the whole thing, this would have definitely gotten a higher rating. But it wasn't. And this is a standalone, I believe. Probably won't be continuing it if it's any more than a standalone. But I gave this 2 out of 5 stars as well. Up next, I continued a manga series in which I talked about my January wrap of the first volume. So I read Again Volume 2. I love these covers so much. Like I stated in the last video, Again follows a series in which there's a teenage boy who is about to graduate high school. He doesn't feel like he did anything in high school. He never made any friends, joined any clubs, so he's kind of regretting that. And a situation happens in which he ends up back on the first day of high school, so he gets a chance to redo everything again. This second volume I enjoyed more than the first. The first I gave 3 out of 5 stars. I gave this one a 3 out of 5 stars as well, but I did enjoy it a little bit more. There is a sport in this that's kind of like cheerleading, but it's predominantly male, and they kind of yell their cheers. I don't know how to explain it. It's called Wendon. I'm definitely saying that wrong. That part confused me a bit. I'm more so enjoying the fact that he's getting a chance to redo high school than I am the sport aspect of this. But I'm still enjoying it overall. I have 3 more volumes, so I'm hoping my enjoyment increases, because if it's just 3 stars all volumes, then there's no point in me continuing. But we'll see. I really like the characters in this. The main character is interesting to read about, because he's kind of annoying, because he's very rude. But he's also enticing, and I kind of want to learn more about him. I don't remember all the characters' names or anything about this, honestly. But I'm going to be reading Volume 3 for Witchathon, so you'll hear about that this month. Oh, bye. This next book was one of my TBR jar picks for January that I didn't read in January, and it is The Cheerleaders by Kara Thomas. This follows a town in which all of the cheerleaders start dying in mysterious ways. 2 get into a car crash. 2 are murdered, and then 1 commits suicide, so trigger warning for that. And then 5 years later, the sister of the cheerleader who committed suicide is on the dance team at this school. The cheerleading team was disbanded because of what happened before, and she starts to think that maybe the guy that was charged for the murders isn't really the one who did it. This was really good and really cliche at parts. Like, Half of it I really enjoyed, and I thought that it was very interesting. It was unique, something I haven't read before. But then it also did fall into a lot of the YA thriller tropes that happen. I mean, I was very mixed on this book. I ended up giving it a 3.5 out of 5 stars because it was interesting. It just wasn't the greatest thing I've ever read. So I would recommend it, I guess. But if you're a big thriller reader, you might not get as much out of it as you would if you don't read thrillers as much. But who knows? Maybe you'll end up loving it. So give it a shot. Let me make a little comment here. I feel like I'm not talking about these stuff as much as I'm talking. I'm trying to keep this video shorter. That's why I'm not talking about everything as much as I usually do. Anyways, back to the cheerleaders. One thing I do have to say is the last chapter in this book kind of covers a mini plot line that happened in the book. It kind of wraps that plot line up and tells you what really happens when this thing happened, and that chapter was amazing. I feel like that chapter is why I gave it a 3.5 and not just a 3. Oh my god, I don't know why I loved it so much, but when I was reading it, I was like, fucking shook, and I'm still shook. Like, thinking about it, I'm like, god damn, maybe I should reread that last chapter, it was so good. But yeah, the cheerleaders. After that was another TBR jar pick. It was a pick for February, and it was A Wrinkle in Time by Madeleine L'Engle. This book I actually started reading last year, in the beginning of the year, and I didn't really like it, so I stopped like 40% in, but I ended up pulling it from my TBR jar, so I was like, I'll give it another shot. And I'm glad I did, because I actually really enjoyed this, and I will be continuing the series now. I'm not even going to talk about what this follows, because I don't even know how to explain it, but I don't know. I mean, the characters were cool in this, but what I really enjoyed about it was the world. You're going into all these different dimensions and these different planets, and they all have their different things. It was really good. 3.5 out of 5 stars. I will be continuing the series. I need to watch the movie still. I haven't done that yet, but I'm sorry I couldn't talk about this more, because I really don't know how to explain it. This book's so weird that you just need to read it yourself. I'm doing a video series on my channel in which me, Mika, Mayana, and Olivia all choose a book in a certain category, and within a 4-month period we just read each of those books, and then we film a video talking about and ranking them. This is the first book in that video. It is Pretty Little Liars by Sarah Shepard. I am not going to go too much into detail about it because that video will be coming out eventually. I don't even know if it's actually going to happen anymore, so who knows? But as of now, it's happening. So everyone knows what Pretty Little Liars is about. It's one of my all-time favorite TV shows. I've read the first 2 books already, so this was a reread. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Really enjoyed it. I'm rewatching the show right now, and I'm tweeting. I have a Twitter thread, so go check that out if you want to read my Twitter thread about the show. I haven't watched it in a few weeks, so that Twitter thread will probably be far on my profile, but anyways, this isn't about the Twitter thread. This is about this book. I liked it. 4 out of 5 stars. Well, the last manga I read in the month was Highrise Invasion, volumes 1 and 2. It's a bind-up. This I was gifted by my sister on Christmas. I've never heard of it before that, but it follows a world in which people wake up. Their last memory is of their everyday life, and they end up waking up in these skyscrapers. And all the city around them is just skyscrapers. They don't know what's happening. Our main character, don't remember her name, but she wakes up on a skyscraper, and she sees a masked person, and they try to kill her. So it's pretty much this world in which you have to survive these masked people trying to kill you while you're on all these skyscrapers that are connected by bridges. First thing I have to say about this is I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars strictly because I really like horror and gore, and this is an interesting story. That being said, there's no character development and there's very little plot. It's pretty much just die, die, die. It's kind of like The Purge. It's a lot of killing in it, but towards the end of the 2nd volume, you do get more plot, but up until that point, there's really just death. So I'm going to be continuing it because I'm enjoying it so far, but I feel like this won't be everyone's cup of tea, so just a warning on that, and it's very gory. I really enjoy the art style, but yeah, so that's our main character. The last book I read in February was actually an e-arc I received. The book itself came out in February. Yeah, it came out halfway through February. That is The Past and Other Things That Should Stay Buried by Sean David Hutchinson. I read the physical book. I pre-ordered it, and I ended up reading it after it came out, obviously, instead of the e-arc, because I was already so close to it coming out that I was like, I'll just wait. It's very short. This follows a boy named Dino? Don't know. And his family owns a funeral home, so he works there he puts makeup on some of the corpses, and his best friend ends up being one of the corpses. They had a falling out. He knew she died beforehand, but they had a falling out, so they weren't friends when she died. And he's just putting makeup on her one day, kind of going through their relationship in his head, like how it all ended, and she comes back to life. And this story is pretty much about them kind of having to deal with their friendship and the way it was left off. I really enjoyed it. Do you know the main character I related to, like, literally on every level possible? He is gay. So, as all Sean David Hutchinson, I'm pretty sure every one of his books has a gay main character. I'm probably wrong. I've only read this one about this. So I really enjoyed it. July, the main female character, I heard a lot, like, I guess a lot of people didn't like her. I see why they didn't like her. She's a very unlikable character, but I did like her. She actually reminded me of one of my best friends. Not in a bad way, though. Like, her good parts of her, like her comedy, her sense of humor, and that kind of thing reminded me of my best friend. So this book was kind of like reading about me and my best friend. This was a more dysfunctional way than our relationship goes, but it kind of reminded me of that. So the main point of this book is definitely character development and a story of friendship and their relationship. It's not really a big plot other than the fact that she's decaying throughout the whole book and they're trying to figure out how she came back to life and what's happening. So I definitely recommend this. I gave it a 4 out of 5 star and it was very good. I liked it. But my other reread of February was City of Bones by Cassandra Clare. Everyone knows what The Mortal Instruments is about, so I'm not going to talk about what it's about. This is a reread. I gave it the same rating I gave it the first time. No, I upped it a 0.5 star. I gave it a 4 the first time, and I upped it to 4.5 out of 5 stars. My thoughts on this pretty much are just, it's good. I really liked it. 4.5 out of 5 star was almost perfect. I will definitely be continuing the series. I'm trying to read every one of her books this year, but I've only read one, and it's halfway through March, so who knows how that's going to go. But I stan Alec hardcore. I stan Magnus hardcore. I really like this. I don't care for Jace. Fun fact. Even my first time reading it, I didn't care for Jace. So, 4.5 out of 5 stars. The last manga I read is Corpse Party, Bloodcovered, Volume 2. It's literally like 3 hours later, and I still have 2 more books to talk about, so we're going to talk about those now. So, the last manga I read in February was Corpse Party, Bloodcovered, Volume 2. This follows a group of they're high schoolers. They are all doing this friendship pact since one of them is moving away soon. And they're all doing this friendship pact, and something happens to where it curses them, and it puts them in a separate dimension in which they are trapped in an elementary school full of killer ghosts and the killer that killed the kids that made them into ghosts. Sorry, that was confusing. This is based off a video game that has multiple endings. Obviously, a manga series can only have one ending since it's a manga series, unless they do other, like, alternate versions. I don't know. So, if you want, like, the endings, the choice to have multiple endings, I would definitely play the game. I've watched someone play, like, a bit of it, and it looks really interesting. But I'm going to stick to the manga, at least for now, because I really love the story. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. But, yes, this is absolutely amazing. I will say I was a little bit confused on some characters because there's random characters introduced in this. Like, there's one, it's not an introduction because they're all in the first one, but there's one character that's really not talked about, and then she ends up in this one, like, at some point, and something happens where I'm like, what? Sorry, that made no sense. But I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I absolutely love this series. It's my favorite manga series, I think. Yeah, I'm going to have to give this one that favorite rating. Really loved it, and I will be continuing hopefully soon. Now, on to my favorite book of February. This was a February release, and I adore it. Ashantae by Gita Trellis. Sorry, my brother just texted me something. Ashantae by Gita Trellis. This book was absolutely amazing. It follows our main character, Camille. She lives in Paris, France. I believe it's Paris. She lives in France. I'm pretty sure it's in Paris. With her sister, and she pretty much is poor, and she's trying to help her and her sister get by every day. To do so, she has to turn to la magie. It's magic, and she pretty much gambles, and while she's gambling, she will turn cards to whatever card she needs them to be. That's the first layer of this story. This story had so many layers that all come together by the end that it was just absolutely amazing. I am obsessed with this book. So good. Love the characters, every single one of them. There is a lot of diverse representation in this. I believe the main love interest is Indian, I think. There is gay characters, there's characters of color, there's all kinds of characters. And it actually does reflect France back in this time. This is set in Marie Antoinette era France. because there was a lot of people of color back then, but history, you know, likes to gloss over that kind of thing because... Anyways, so... Ashantae, absolutely amazing. Please read it. Mayana and Serenity have a book club called the Lonely Hearts Club, in which single people or people that just feel lonely in general, it might be from not having... They might feel lonely because of friends, because of relationships, family, anything. And pretty much every month they just read a book. And this is their March pick. So I highly suggest join that and pick this up. I am obsessed with this book and I already want to reread it. Kind of large, I think. Oh, it's not that big. It's only like 440 pages. But just read it. Just read it. That is all the books I read in February. I definitely think I did better this wrap-up. But I'm watching me edit it and hate this one as well. But whatever. It's okay. I'm still working on it. I need to plan more before I film videos. I say that all the time, but I really need to start doing it. I need to get my life together in general. But I'm going to go now. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe. Comment down below if you've read any of these books, because I like hearing your thoughts on books or similar books to any of these. I don't know. If you guys have any good horror manga recommendations, I would love to hear those, because I'm always looking for more horror manga, and I'd love to integrate that onto my channel more. I read a lot of graphic novels too, but I haven't been reading any recently. Whatever. So just let me know if there's any good ones down below. But thank you for watching. Goodbye.